I've started it. And now the Facebook turned off. Let's check what Facebook thinks it's supposed to be. It's really time for me to stop doing a show because obviously I've lost the ability to do it. All right. The YouTube feed is in excellent condition.
Hello, YouTube. Welcome to What Goes On Behind the Scenes. This is what Gary does to start a show normally. And you get to be witness to it.
The Twitter is there.
Hello, Twitter. I'm so sorry that you were on that service.
Twitter's getting rid of Periscope, but they're still going to take okay. It's complaining about Facebook.
We all complain about Facebook, really. Let he who is without Facebook complaints throw the first stone.
So we go over here, we look at the Facebook. Tell it to create again. May end up with like about 6 Facebook broadcasts here. Tell it to start looking at the Facebook group. There's a live. There's a was live. I think I can make that go away. Okay. We just may be everywhere we want to be.
And in only 16 minutes. That's a record.
Well, normally we haven't started the show by now anyway. I feel no shame. I feel no shame whatsoever in not being able to get on a mere 3 streams. One of the problems, though, is I've been trying to market myself as someone who can do this for other people for money. Forget that idea.
I'm getting reports from California that we are still not broadcasting sound.
I think we are. I see sound. So let's go check streams. One of the problems, though, is I've been trying to market myself. That's the sound is played back from YouTube.
Okay.
Forget that idea.
It's just on their end.
They may be looking at the wrong stream. If there may be several streams, bad streams. I don't see any extra streams going out on are the California people on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter? Do they know? Are they on our satellite?
I don't know. Apparently, they've got sound now.
Okay, so they're good. We are broadcasting to the world.
Hello, world. Those of you who've done computer programming will understand that.
Anything that you do in computer programming that involves media.
Learning your language.
Yeah, whatever.
Start with hello, world.
Hello, world. Okay. Yay. Do we want to go over the part about why you weren't here last week again?
Nah, we'll save it. We'll use it sometime. We don't need to go over it again.
Jen had a breakdown. COVID breakdown.
tiny one.
You're good
Little
now.
Yep.
And I said, you're not the only one. In fact, the exceptions are the people who have not. And you said, yes, mental health wise, we understand.
Yep.
And then
ain't no shame in the mental health game.
And then I played the music. From the studio in the bonus room above the garage on the north side of Cary at the foot of Mount Belzoni, this is the Triangle Talk Show.
Let's cut the crap, kid. I want to know what the big talk's all about.
I don't think we should talk about this.
Then we talk all night.
Let's give them something to talk about. Another night of hearing myself talk.
Stop me if you've heard this one.
Talk is cheap, yo.
Yeah.
With a little less talk and a lot more action.
I don't wanna
Talk to me.
So knock it off with the yickety yak, the yakety yick.
Let's tell it like it is and how it could be. How it was and, of course, how it should be.
keep that motor mouth moving morning, noon, and night. And if you keep on talking, baby, you know you're bound just to drive me away.
And sequestered in that studio, I'm Gary Pearce.
And from the not yellow backdrop in my dining room.
From the
not
shower
yellow
curtain.
at all. It's not a shower curtain. It's a photography backdrop.
Yeah.
On the border, I wish it was a shower curtain. I'd like that in my shower, but it doesn't have the thing at the top to put on the rings. On the border of Carrboro in the People's Republic of Chapel Hill, sequestered at the foot of Mount Okanichi, and on the side of the hill with the eponymous chapel up top, I'm Jen, host of NannyCast.
And between the two of us, we are the best team of podcasters in North Carolina. This is episode 129, January 10th, 2021. I was a little bit worried that by the time we actually got all the streams working was going to be January 11th, and I would have to change the title, but it's still Sunday. Go home. We love you. Everybody know that famous quote, where that came from? And by everybody, I mean you, Jen.
No, I do not.
You don't know where that came from? Mm-mm. That was our illustrious president speaking to the mob that was besieging the Capitol.
See, I don't listen to him when he talks anymore because I don't want to feed his ego.
Yep. Yeah. Everyone said, you got to do something about this. You're the president. And he came on and he said, among other things, and the other things were, the election was stolen. You all have a right to be extremely angry. We love the police. Go home.
Oh,
We
like
love
the
you.
people who loved the police so much that they brutalized an officer to death? That kind of love?
That kind of
I don't
love,
want
yeah.
that kind of love.
Yep.
But I must say it was incredibly amusing to watch the people who played the All Blue Lives Matter game earlier, showing the blue lives exactly how much they mattered. That was hypocrisy at its finest. So delicious.
There was a lot of that in evidence last week, and we're going to talk about some of that. And so going to rip through the boilerplate here and then get our guests, because we have some guests. Triangle Talk Show is, at least for now, it's a podcast, the best way to consume the program. Although it is a TV show. We're live on YouTube, Facebook Live, Periscope, Twitter, but it's a podcast. We talk about anything we want to. Normally it's local stuff. We're going to talk about Washington, and we're going to relate it to local stuff. So we're going to do both. For you triangularians, a neologism I made up. Triangle Talk Show website is triangletalkshow.com. Our Facebook group, Triangle Talk Show. Our YouTube channel, Triangle Talk Show. Twitter, and Periscope is going away. Twitter is ending Periscope, but they're going to keep the live video stuff at Talk Triangle. Podcast-wise, we're on all the apps. And you can like us, you can review us, you can rate us, you can hate us. I don't care. On with the show. Insurrection. Assault on the Capitol. I thought that the Trump phone call to the guys in Georgia was going to be the big story by the time we got to this weekend. Ha!
Oh no, an attempted coup.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I saw something like this coming. I was one of the few people who was relieved by what took place because I foresaw it being worse. And I would like to say that's not necessarily better.
All right. Well,
This was signposted a million times from Sunday. So when your politicians say, oh, we didn't know it was going to happen, we're so sorry after the fact, that's not true. They wanted to wait and see if it would succeed. And then they had a speech prepared for success and a speech prepared for failure. And the failure speech was prepared to try and trust that Americans were dumb enough to believe that the only reason that they are finally getting their act together is because they were suddenly brought to the table and shown the light. That's not true. They saw it coming, and they are wily, and they were prepared for success, and they wanted to see if it would succeed.
wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you don't hitch your ride to somebody who's trying to be a dictator and not know where that's going.
Although, I don't know. The question is Trump predictable? Is he stupid like a fox, or is he as unpredictable as it would seem?
He's predictably unpredictable. I didn't know the shape and the nature. Like I said, I predicted it would be worse, but I knew that this was coming.
Yeah.
I knew something was coming. I knew an attempted coup was coming. I just didn't realize that the attempted coup would use the weapons of, say, parkour and not like rifles.
Yeah, that surprised me. The lack of. Well, tell you what, we need to bring in our guests because they're going to be part of our conversation here, and they are. Let's see, is everybody unmuted? Alan, you need to unmute yourself, and we will start in our box at the bottom. Oh, let me do a couple more things here. Got to remove the pin.
Remove the pin.
Alan is doing his best. Kilroy was here. You know the Kilroy was here thing?
Yes. Because Kilroy was not our horrible president, so I did go to his speeches. Yeah, Kilroy is from I believe it was World War II. They spray painted Kilroy was here.
Yeah, and he always looked like this.
Yep.
And we have a lot of people on Zoom calls that do that. So it looks like Alan is working his way to someplace. He's working his way to Elizabeth. Elizabeth was going
to her how to unmute.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, show me how to unmute this thing.
I can't see. I'm nearly blind.
Okay, I see the problem. So Alan Logman is going to be one of our guests.
Yes.
Mostly it's his wife Elizabeth Crudup who will be there, and she's the only title that I've got for the two of them. But on the bottom of the screen is Haiku X, who's been on the show a couple times before, under a different name. And so either you're in the witness protection program or you have chosen a new name for yourself. It has been Sean Green the last time everybody saw you. So let's just get that out of the way. What is the deal with Haiku X?
There's a spiritual aspect, and then there is an aspect for safety in some sense. Even though a lot of people around here know my name, it's a small dot on the map. So it's a way of just introducing myself to people and not having them fully be able to research me right away if they aren't fully familiar with the scene that I'm on.
Okay, also, so now I've outed you.
Yeah, you have, and it's okay.
Didn't mean to do that.
I mean, it's not that serious, but I mean, it's just, something that can be preventative. It is also a spiritual thing. So I was already going by the name Haiku. Some people already knew me by that. I am a musician. I'm an R&B artist. I'm a singer. So, yeah, that was my stage name. Haikus, in the Japanese form of the poem, talk about things of human emotion and nature. So I call myself the voice of human nature. And the X just basically means that we don't, we as being derivative people of slaves and people that were drugged from their homes, we don't know our real last names. So X just symbolizes whatever my real last name is.
The probably most people will be familiar with that as a name for Malcolm X. Mm-hmm. And was that the X, the derivative of the X that he was using?
Yes, that was because he was actually Malcolm Little, but the X was this was the name that the slave owners basically gave to me and white forefathers gave to me. So I don't know what my real last name is, but it's symbolic of me traveling back to my roots.
Okay. So in the driver's license side of real life, you still use the original name.
As of now, yes.
But you may make this your real name permanently.
It is very possible.
Okay. I'm happy to honor Haiku X and call you that and have you be that here and have that show up as this official title here on Triangle Talk Show. And welcome back.
Thank you.
So let's see. I have a plan-ish for the show as we talk about the stuff that went on in Washington. I've long thought this would be a good way to do things when there are issues that have two very definite sides that seem in conflict with each other. And that is to make a little chart like this and have what there is on one side and what there is on the other side. And so I've started the chart and I've called it the left and the right. And we can dispute and argue whether even the nomenclature of the left and the right are correct. And I stuck anger on both sides. And that may be a place to start once we get to this chart thing, but I don't think we're at the chart thing yet. I think we need to let everybody just talk about what their reaction to Washington was and as it relates to what goes on here. Because Haiku, your experience with me, with here in the Triangle Talk Show, has been over in Alamance County, which we touched on, well, twice, 2 shows with you. And then I did that little documentary thing with the footage that I shot when I went out there on election day. And so that's our connection there. The Alamance County thing had been going on long before any of this started and continues to go on. And I'd like to hear more about that from you. So I'll let you start, I guess. And just how do you want to react to what went on in Washington, D.C.? Where were you when you saw that going on?
I was at home doing a piece of artwork, and I was on the phone with someone, and they started kind of freaking out. So I cut on CNN, and I began to watch from there. I considered it a victory of sorts, and I know everybody's like, we're so sad. This shouldn't have happened. I'm heartbroken. Let's come together. This was not necessarily, in that sense, anything heartbreaking for me. This was something that this nation needed to see in order to bring some kind of stability to what has been a chaotic, unstable country, even more so than it ever has been due to a chaotic, unstable, quote unquote, president. So I was like, okay, we're going to see how, my first thought was, we're going to see how the law enforcement deals with them. And this was, before the law enforcement really got involved. Like, I was like, we're going to see how they deal with them. And they dealt with them exactly how I thought they would. And it opened up more conversation and provided further proof of how people of certain skin color are treated differently in this country. So I thought that was a win, because it may have been an eye opener for someone that had the opinion, that maybe was middle of the road and had the opinion, I don't know, maybe they're being a little dramatic, or they're being a little drastic or exaggerative in saying that they're treated so differently. And I think that this was a great eye opener for people who wanted to see the truth. It also made me a little upset at one point, because I was like, I have been, and along with my comrades and people all over the nation who stand for what I stand for, we have been assaulted and battered and arrested, and just every just about negative verbiage that you can throw at us. We've experienced all of that for way less. For much less than what was done at the Capitol. So I think the contrast in how, certain people in America get to be domestic terrorists and certain people don't have a right to free speech and to march in the streets. It's interesting to say the least.
Yeah, right away, almost as things were still going on, the idea of imagine if these were black and brown people assaulting the Capitol, what we would be seeing compared to what we were seeing at the time. Alan, let you make your monologue. Where were you when you saw this, and what were your first reactions?
First reactions were that we had people that were looking into this when it was first happening. I had an idea and had a full time. And the thing I noticed most of all, there was no riot police. There was no militarism that you see in all over North Carolina, but all over the nation in the South. And none of that existed. And the point was, I've never seen riot police used against white people or white supremacists. Me and Elizabeth actually went to 2 years ago to a gathering in Raleigh of the Klan and the I went and looked at them. They all had batons, weapons at their side, and they'd take pictures of everyone that walked by that was black, and they'd say, "I got your picture, and I know where you live." And the people protecting them was the Capitol Police. We said, "Oh yeah, it's okay to have rifles and pistols." The counter demonstrations were Muslims who were terrified to go out and march, terrified. But eventually they got enough to realize it had to be done. They were afraid of being, tired of being harassed all the time. So they went and they formed a line and they circled around it. Now, the police were friendly for the neo-Nazis. We counted 105. They armed to the teeth. And then we walked around, because, we didn't have any arms. And we walked around, and we, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, state troopers came around. They showed their backs to the other crowd, and they turned around, and they forced us to move down the road, blocking us. Like we were a problem against them, the neo-Nazis, who were armed and we were not. So this shows you something about the training that law enforcement has in general. If riot police, which was used against us, in Raleigh, and has been used against you in other counties and other cities, they only seem to be to Jim Crow. I think these institutions were actually formed for that purpose in the 60s. Riot control was to keep African Americans from freedom of speech and to know their place. And I don't believe there's a legitimate reason for having them so large or having them at all, because I don't think they existed too much before that. And I do believe that they're oversized. And their batons came out and started beating people down to the ground in Durham when I was there, and other places when they had. I saw nothing there at the Capitol. If you saw them, they were all over the place. There was no shields, no riot police, no rubber bullets, no tear gas. You see? And that's telling you something about the mentality of our police force. One of the things about our police force seems to be surrounded by and supported of white supremacists. And I believe that it's so bad that at least in North Carolina and the rest of the world, the FBI needs to take a background check to see if any police officers, judges, wardens, sheriffs and all of them, see if they're DAs and see if they are members of these terrorist organizations. And we have to understand their police forces and their law force as a field of study is infested with this. And we need to show that these people do not have a conflict of interest to their job versus their religion, which I consider is their religion, not just a group that they hand with. And therefore, I black out judges and everything else that are associated with these groups. It's not compatible with law, not compatible with justice. And I believe that's a major point we need to make. Again, we should defund. We were defunding years ago. I'm tired of people saying, "Oh, you want to break the police force." Bullshit. Pardon me. But the reason for that was that in in New York, they had corrupt police forces, town police, especially local, very corrupt. And it was so corrupt that they had to form a meeting and say, look, we don't want these people around, so they dissolved it because they were that bad. They were stealing food from supermarkets, from vendors, money, and everything else. Eventually, they said, look, we have to get rid of them. They're no good. And the real truth is we're better off getting rid of most of our local police force. One, they're a cost to the community. Second of all, the state troopers are better trained. And third of all, some of the sheriff's departments are a little bit better trained. The ones that are good, the ones that are bad, we need to root out and get rid of entirely. If it's more than one person, it's a paradigm in that local police force. And we need to get rid of the paradigm. And the background checks will do that. And we need to be more accountable. We need review boards in every county. We need them to have subpoena power. The community is who the police force is supposed to be working for. They're not. They're working for themselves. The laws that they have now, they don't even have to write reports. If you want anything to be done to change them or file a report against them, guess what? They have to accept the fact that they have to prove it. Why do they have to prove it? We don't work with the state employees. Why do they get so many rights? Why do police keep their records? Why do they keep their paperwork and not allowed to bring it into court? So we don't know what their intention was. We don't know what they were doing. And we can't even bring up evidence against them in the court of law. And that needs to change. That law needs to change. We need to sit down there and say, look, there's certain things that should never happen. When police forces and people in general have so much power and they have no accountability, they become sociopathic. I don't care if you're police force or anything. Anybody with great power, who has great power, does it. That's why founders of the American Constitution did not go for titles. They figured the more empowered someone was and more non-accountable for their work or what they do, the more sociopathic they are. And that's why they outlawed it in this country and put that in the Constitution. But now we got powers that this nation's Constitution never meant them to have. The division of power, the ability of accountability does not happen with sheriffs. They could do almost anything they want. And grand juries can be selective in the information they have so that you can't go to a grand jury and have a police officer removed or even put in jail or even anything happen to them. That has to end. Governor Cooper has to understand that it's just not getting rid of and changing the laws that they have now. It's not the fact we have to go back and find all the law enforcement people for years that justice was not handled because they broke the law, and we need to have them prosecuted. The deaths, the illegal all this needs to be brought out, and we need to turn around and press charges on law enforcement who have done this. Not to slap their hands and get rid of them. We need to go and press them for justice and put them in prison if necessary.
Waiting a beat or so, because Alan, you're one of the wind up and let them go people. Are you? You're not an elected politician yet, are you?
I'm not going to be. I'm not a politician. I have no care in the world to be a politician. We do this because we think that people need to respond. We do this because we don't make money. We don't care about fame. My Elizabeth Crudup my wife has been beaten up, attempted murder many times, and has horrible, horrible attacks on her all the time in her life. What she does. The point is she still does it. And that's the point. You have to go on. Justice is not something that's part of nature. You understand? The world owes you nothing. It can come down and crush you. The world's principles don't have that justice in it. You have to fight for it, and you have to make it real yourself. It's not owed to you. You have to fight for every moment of that.
Yeah, I haven't gone deep into my personal philosophies of morality and justice and right and wrong, but to summarize them very briefly, they are what we give each other, what you can convince everybody to go along with. That's where right and wrong come from. Nothing that gets handed down to us. Jen, do you want to? You already did a little bit, but do you want to
Oh, where do I start? I think everybody has touched on the differences in the way that this all-white crowd was treated versus a crowd of color, predominantly Black. And yeah, I think that was stark and obvious. And so I'm just, boosting their signal. But I'd like to add that the message that I heard with that, and I heard a lot of people reacting to not this message, was that they want everybody to be treated as gently as our parkour white supremacist friends, not everybody to be treated as harshly as Black Lives Matter. The outcome is that, if we can be gentle for these guys, we can be gentle for everybody. And I saw an immediate instant reaction where people were sort of fighting the straw man of please brutalize all. And I want to emphasize, underscore, highlight, star, and point you to the Black voices that are saying it primarily, that it is that we want gentle all around. I started out just in gallows humor. It was nap time, and a nanny posted a screenshot, and she said, "Are you following what's happening in DC? Are there any DC nannies? Like, what do you need? How can we support you?" And immediately turned on the TV and started watching, probably from the moment that the wall was being climbed. And my first reaction was that it was very bold of them in DC, given the weather, to be going barehanded, and that they would probably get frostbite in their fingers. And then I was watching people swing from things, and I was waiting for the weapons, and I was waiting for the weapons, and I was waiting for the weapons, and they never appeared. And I said, "Oh, thank God, we can handle this. It's survivable."
Yeah, I think there were weapons out of sight, and they didn't come out, which I also thought was surprising. If
the trumpets, and I agree with calling it a religion, I call it a cult of personality. If the trumpets had come in fully armed, first of all, I think that the police would have stood down just the same way that they did here. But also, I'm not sure the outcome would have been the same, and I wouldn't have wanted to live in that America. So I am thankful that they did not come in fully armed. Can I curse?
Yes.
We push the explicit button.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys, swearing is permitted. You can say things like fuck.
The fucking audacity. Just the fucking audacity. But I agree with Haiku that this needed to be seen by the majority of America. Because there were a lot of people for whom this was their first time realizing there was a double standard. And it wasn't for me, so I guess I couldn't really sympathize with them. I was just going, the fucking audacity to keep doing this. Can we stop? I'm so done. I'm ready for it to be over. But I just like to say, I hope everybody's loins are girded, because in the same way that I predicted this going down, we're not done.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. I think the 19th or the 20th are dates that I've heard for
as swan songs go, we're not done. But this is a swan song. I can recognize this from when I try and teach children to stop throwing their food on the ground. This is a swan song. This is an extinction spike. This is the end, and it may seem very violent and very big, and like we're going to have a big problem in the future, but it's the end. And this is how it usually goes. There's one last big burst to see if maybe they can get away with it. And when they can't, it's done. It's gone. So there's that hope. But I hope Biden, claiming the optics in order to prevent a precedent, just claiming that it is because of COVID, takes his vows and, gets sworn in the Situation Room. Saying it's safer for everybody, no big public inauguration, because that will prevent something going down at the inauguration being successful. And I hope he does. And I know that if I can think of it, greater strategists than me can think of it. And I hope he does, because I know people are saying, well, we're worried about Biden not being publicly visible because what kind of precedent would that set? And I'd say, blame it on COVID. He is in a unique position where he can say, for pandemic purposes, I'm going to do this in a in an environmentally controlled room, which just also happens to be armored.
If he does that, what he would be doing is creating an excuse which has deniability. It has some legitimacy, but
it would set the precedent that in all future pandemics, presidents might want to be in environmentally controlled rooms for big public events, and that's fine. I am okay with that being the future, but I'm really, really worried about Trump as an authoritarian and as a wanton dictator was bumbling and bad. The next one's not gonna be. The next one's gonna be better. And so the America, the democracy that we all love, it's not gonna be a democracy forever, y'all. We have had the roadmap painted for us as to how the next one is gonna improve and to do it right this time.
Yeah, Trumpism without Trump could be much more dangerous. I wouldn't want Biden to use a fig leaf, though. I would, if he's going to do it in the Situation Room, if he's going to do it in some place that is much more protected, I would like him to just say transparently, we're doing this because there was a mob on Wednesday that got into the Capitol, and we are going to deny them that opportunity until we have the ability to make sure that's not something that's going to happen again. If this were an apocalyptic movie, that would have been the first wave, and the talking heads that were titching about it on the cable news channels, in the movie they would have them doing that while the split screen shows the next wave of the mob really getting ready. Is that an American possibility?
Absolutely.
He said in his best cable news apocalyptic voice.
Absolutely. The phrase a trial balloon. This was a trial balloon to see what they could get away with, and they got away with a lot. Law enforcement stood down. It took forever to mobilize the National Guard. I was following the Twitter feeds, and I didn't have time to fact check, whether the things that the politicians were posting were within their power. But I do know the National Guard had been called for a number of times before it finally showed up, and it had been denied a number of times before it finally showed up. There were various politicians saying, this person called for the National Guard, that person, I called for the National Guard, and they said no because of the bureaucratic process. It was the wrong person calling at the wrong time. And the National Guard finally showed up. Whereas for Black Lives Matter, they were there from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, they got away with a lot. As a trial balloon shows, bureaucracy can be wielded as a weapon as well. It's taking morality out of it at all, just looking at pure, U.S. policies, which it is neither moral nor amoral to drive on this side of the road or that side of the road, or to have the governor have to call for the National Guard, or the fact that D.C. doesn't have a governor because it's a District of Columbia. So the governor of Virginia and the governor of Maryland cannot, in fact, call the National Guard to D.C. because that would be a state invading another state, so to speak. That can be weaponized. And that, I think, is what was discovered out of this trial balloon for the people who would undermine democracy.
As I understand it would take the Secretary of Defense to call the National Guard for D.C. Alan is saying no. Who can call for them? And what I was going to get at was Trump replaced the Secretary of Defense recently with an acting puppet.
Biden's having trouble finding a Secretary of Defense who's going to get confirmed on day one, is what the news is reporting as of today.
Yeah, so who can call for the Guard into D.C.? But it's got to be the federal government. As the interview that I saw, the press conference with the governor of Maryland he was ready. He was getting calls from people inside the Capitol saying, please send them. And he said, I can't.
He posted on Twitter. He was one of the ones that posted on Twitter saying, I tried, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know enough to know whether what he posted was true. I just know that he posted it and I saw it with my eyes in the moment at the time.
Yeah. Alan and Haiku are both making references to white supremacists in our police departments.
Oh, for sure. This is an open secret.
Yeah. And within the Capitol Police, I saw two, and I didn't see this at the time, but in looking at news coverage afterwards, I see a dichotomy within the Capitol Police. There were Capitol Police officers who were fighting the mob, and one lost his life. And there were Capitol Police officers that were waving them in, taking selfies.
Yeah.
What you do inside a police force like that, I don't know. But
you defund them and scrap it and start over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do if you discover that your roofers guild sucks at roofing? You fire them all. Hire people who are good at roofing. Like, it is just basic business sense. If your people can't do the job, they don't need to be in that job.
Yeah, in this case, you probably have to figure out a way to do it without a zero police force gap.
There are other
that
law
will be
enforcement agencies that can cover while you're gone. Look at what happened to Minnesota. Look at what happened to, what is it, Compton? No, what's in Jersey?
Camden.
Camden, New Jersey. They did the same. I mean, they've got a police force now, but they scrapped them for a bit and just entered into a financial arrangement with other law enforcement to cover in the meantime. You know, it's not as scary as it seems. It's not like you're inviting anarchy if you destroy a police force.
Yeah, and I've heard someone describe the Capitol Police as more like a campus police.
Yeah,
they're not equipped for riot police duty.
No, but the sergeant at arms are, I mean, this is probably the most exciting thing that's happened in any of their careers, because normally they just stand around like taking rowdy drunk senators to go cool off in the water cooler. But they are armed, and I saw a lot of them being incredibly brave. I saw a second lot of them being incredibly racist, but I saw a lot of them being incredibly brave, and I'm proud of those.
I haven't heard very much mention of the Secret Service. The Secret Service doesn't guard the Capitol, but the vice president was there and the vice president-elect were both there. And they have Secret Service protection anywhere they go. And I haven't heard a word about what the Secret Service did or didn't do in that situation and why they couldn't have called in reinforcements just as the Secret Service. Haven't heard about that at all. Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
What people are not looking at is the fact that you have all the nation's most important secrets held up near the control room, the situation room, and all over there has all these top secret documents. The problem I have with the whole thing, it's too organized for it not to work. All right, it wasn't circumstance. It was organized not to be able to respond. And I believe that Epstein, which Trump is used to and had spent years with, Russia likes to get people in trouble with sex. And I believe that he had so much on Trump when he became president, and that Trump, isn't going to sacrifice his life or jail for life for this country. He's for himself. And I have a feeling there's a connection between the Russians, the elections, Epstein, and what's happening with the government, the race war trying to be established to weaken this nation. So we're worried about the 19th and 20th also for all sorts of stuff. But I'm worried about, and our government should be more worried about, is that a nation may actually strike against us. When people were walking in there, they could have had bomb suits. They could have been detonating and killing people by the thousands. And it didn't and we did not, and we're not prepared for it. We should have a permanent, like in an embassy, Marine Corps there, with weapons and everything else to stop any advance to get into the very key areas of the White House because of that. And we should have been, we know we're fighting terrorists, for crying out loud. Why are we all of a sudden have all these agencies and they just literally walk in and could have blown everyone up to hell? Stole all the information. You wouldn't know what would happen. Walked out with, since we didn't arrest any outside, which didn't make sense either. Okay, so this was arranged, in my opinion, by the president. I think it has more to do with it. I sicked them on the vice president. I think this was arranged for them not to respond.
Did you see that no one has been arrested?
Well, they've been arrested, but you had so many people outside just allowed to leave. Everyone should have had to sit down on the ground until they figured out who everyone was because there were deaths, who was leaving with what. They should have never been able to get past a certain parameter. Once the military came in and they were still there, they should have all been made to sit down on the ground and find out what's going on with the stuff that was stolen outside. And they did not do that. You got to remember, I was in the military, and I know that top secret stuff is in there, and it cannot get into other people's hands. I don't care about the stuff, the politics stuff. I don't give a damn. But lives are in danger knowing our codes and knowing how our system works. And nothing was done to protect that. I want Marines there as guards to protect the facility at the White House, not under anyone's control, but to give their lives to protect the people within inside. And I don't think you should be able to walk in there past a certain point, particularly where you start to enter into places where secret information may be hidden. And then, yes, you have the right to use weaponry. Anyone that is out there with a weapon should have been brought down as soon as they showed it. If not, they should have been made to go to the ground and disarm them. And that was not done. And yet you have in Alamance County all these people arrested going to vote. Do you understand the parallel to that? Our priorities are screwed up. Our political systems control our thinking too much, Democratic and Republican. Now we see the extremes of conservatism as a failure, economically, socially. And our ability to follow the Democratic Party is just as bad. You know, it's the party system and corruption. And when unchallenged, it becomes massively corrupt and doesn't obey anything. It becomes arrogant. And this is arrogance is what you're seeing. Finally, the senators, Republican senators say, oh, no, we should not have been part of this. But they, too, in my opinion, were guilty of treason. And I believe this is more about treason than anything else. And when it came to law enforcement, I believe it's about racism. It's the cornerstone to conservatism. And yes, you have the Southern Baptist Church, who still has members that are very racist. And I don't think you should have God support racism.
Okay, I'll go along with that. Sean, go ahead. I'm sorry, haiku.
I mean, call me a conspiracy theorist here, but
you're a conspiracy theorist. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. But no, I actually do believe that maybe not all of the officers were privy, which is maybe why you saw some of them acting in the way that they should. But I do believe that there were officers that were privy prior to that this was going on. I do believe that as my man has said here, that this was orchestrated. I'm sorry, I forgot your name, and I tried so hard.
Alan.
Alan, I do believe that this was orchestrated from the head on down, and that's why you were able to have officers that were taking selfies, allowing them in, acting like they were so overwhelmed. I do not believe that they were as overwhelmed as it seemed. I believe that they orchestrated it. They took away some of the manpower from that area, or didn't add the manpower that they should have due to, just the date and the time that it was. And due to the fact that we already knew this was coming. This was talked about days in advance, if not weeks. This was not a secret. So that it fails me that if it wasn't a secret, because when we organized in Alamance County over the summer and the fall, all they needed was one whim, that we posted something and some informant went and let them know that something was going on. And we would, we came to already seeing before we even got started, snipers on top of buildings, like armored trucks and all of these preparations. They were waiting on us. So I would be remiss if I did not even sound like a conspiracy theorist and say that's no different than when your president says gather at the Capitol. We're talking about relatively as far as the world is concerned, a small group of people, black, white, all different races, saying we're going to get together and we're going to protest here. And then we're talking about a whole president that is saying go to the Capitol. And there was less security at the Capitol than there was in Alamance County on numerous occasions, which is kind of hilarious. And I would love to address something as well, because people who are making the argument that Black people have done this, that is actually not true. So in the 60s, the Black Panthers and Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton, they did not storm the Capitol. They actually approached the Capitol to do a demonstration, to basically make a visual statement against a bill that was not racially equitable to people of color. They were making a statement. They simply approached the Capitol fully strapped with weapons, firearms opened. And the story is that the firearms were actually taken from them initially as they were seen approaching. They at the time were not breaking any law. So they argued that, and these officials had to return their firearms and allow them to walk into the Capitol. They did not break anything. They did not steal anything. They did not threaten anyone. They literally walked into the Capitol with ARs and AKs and walked in there and stood there and said what, basically. That is so when people are doing these little compare contrast images or saying that nobody said anything when they did it, that was not an attack, an assault, or domestic terrorism. It was imagery, it was symbolism, and it was power to the people. And that's not what happened in this incident last Wednesday. This was domestic terrorism. So I thought that was an important point to raise, so that people don't get confused by far right, or dare I say it, racists, white supremacists that want to continue to defend what happened here. That never happened. The Black community has never done so and would never be allowed to do so. If it was the Black community, because in a lot of our protests, we've actually had more people of other races and more white people out than Black people. But it's because of what those white people are standing for. So if it was a Black Lives Matter type deal, we would not have even gotten to the Capitol. Because I mean, they have drones out. And I fail to believe that there is no security that is watching what is going on the grounds as it's approaching. How are you overwhelmed with every bit of security in one of the most important, if not the most important place in in this country, and you don't have widespread surveillance? When you've had widespread surveillance at the coming of me, this one Black man that all of these races and elements were so scared of, you couldn't wait to have widespread surveillance over me, but you couldn't do it at the Capitol. This was a plan. This was orchestrated. And I believe that various officials knew what was going on, including some of the officials that have since denounced what happened. I believe some of them are realizing that it would be political suicide to even be associated with it. But I believe that some of these Republicans that are stepping out and denouncing this attack on the nation's capital were actually a part of it. I believe it's possible that they were a part of this or privy to that beforehand.
I always wonder if that kind of a conspiracy is going on. Is it a conspiracy that is led by a bunch of people that are really sharp and with it and very capable of planning tactically just exactly what they were going on? Or is it a clown car that is totally inept and incompetent and has their ideology in place but has no idea how to accomplish it?
I believe it's the latter.
Definitely the clown car. Because there is no way. I mean, heck, if all of us have been in a workplace with more than one employee, right? Or all of us have planned at least at one point a surprise birthday party. You know that even if you are the best planner in the world, there is no way once you get above 3 people in on the secret that secret stays a secret.
I don't agree.
Yeah.
I don't agree, because you had a lot of CEOs that were caught there, a lot of major corporations, a lot of elected officials from the state. You had too many people representing the Republican Party, that were there at the demonstration. Why are they there? Why would they physically go do this? it was organized. They knew there was going to be no trouble against them. In fact, I don't think it at all had anything to do with a bunch of thugs. I think it was very well planned.
Oh, no, not
Too
thugs.
many people were
Just
there.
lucky
Too many
idiots.
important CEOs and money people and power people were there. They wouldn't have exposed themselves to being killed. They went there, went into the building like everyone else. Officials, elected people, like everyone else. They didn't do that knowing that they would be hurt. And I have a feeling that's one of the things. They were told to be there. And I have a feeling they were supposed to be the shield.
Yeah,
That's why the weapons were never deployed. And that's why the pipe bombs never went off. Because it was all a ruse. It was to make a statement. It was to test the waters, to see what they could get away with. Yeah, the trial balloon, as you've spoken of. It was that. If it was really more than just an organized statement, I do believe that there are some people in this country that are crazy enough to deploy weapons and begin to use them and begin to shoot and to hurt people.
Yeah, and I will say it makes me very, very happy to hear that the FBI tip line was overwhelmed with people turning in people. Although that begs the question, listen, if Facebook can do a facial identification off of these crowd shots, like, why do we need the FBI tip line?
Yeah.
Do you recognize anybody in any of these pictures? Like, run them through Facebook. It's fine. Make Facebook useful to the government for something. But yeah, I was thrilled to hear that the FBI tip line was overwhelmed. I do think that there is a certain element of luck that happened here, which is why I thought that it was the clown car of lucky idiots. I do believe there was planning. I do believe there was intention, but I also believe that there was an element of luck in the success of what happened, because there were many opportunities for a plan to get exposed in a way that would have undermined it. And that did not happen. And I don't think we need to give anybody credit for being especially good at keeping the plan under wraps. I think that was just luck.
Early on, some of the Republican pundits, media, were trying to say that the group that did the actual incursion into the Capitol was a false flag. It was Antifa. It was
listen, if it leads to arrests, then they can have the word Antifa. Well, it's fine. We'll find a different word.
I mean, a lot of them were identified. We know who they were. So
I'm still waiting on Antifa to hand me my check for all the work that I've done for whatever. Like, I mean, they owe me a lot of money. So
I will not die on the hill of needing the term Antifa to be for my side. Y'all want to call yourselves Antifa and get arrested? Fine. It's fine. It's good. Arrest them for that. Okay, we're good. Like, I'm not going to fight this fight. You want to call them Antifa? You want to slap them in handcuffs? You want to bring them up on charges? Okay, go for it. So long as you slap them in handcuffs, bring them up on charges.
The thing is, I thought it was hilarious how you have the Republic. Like, not every single one. I'm sure there were some that were well-intentioned, but a lot of these people that really rode for Trump, I think it's hilarious in the sense that we already understand the principle that if you unite against a common enemy, that is a powerful glue. However, it's a powerful deterrent as well, because people who unite against the enemy always turn on each other at some point. So when things don't go well, or when the common enemy is gone, or whatever the situation may be, they turn on each other. I do believe that they were in cahoots, but it became I have to save myself. And the only way that I don't commit career and political suicide and don't lose all of my constituents and the people that are kind of middle of the road especially, is to sit here and denounce it and act like I am in such shock and horror. And I'm so, like, miss me with that, as we say. Miss me with it.
They wanted to see if it would work, and when it didn't work, they did the thing that saves their skin. I might go a step further based on the actions I've seen out of the House of Representatives and suggest that maybe because I know they're privy to their own intelligence reports, maybe perhaps some House Democratic leadership was aware of this as well.
Yeah.
Because it was really fast how quick another impeachment resolution was mentioned. And that's cute and all, but we done impeached the president already. What's another one going to do? Listen, House, if you want to be helpful, go talk to the Senate and get the Senate to convict and remove. Because that's the people who convict and remove. So you can pass 19 zillion impeachment resolutions and waste my tax dollars like that, but his ass is still sitting in the presidential Oval Office. Go talk to the senators. Do an actually useful thing. I'm not here for window dressing. That's one thing 2020 has made me entirely too tired of. It's optics.
Well, they have to do the impeach again before the Senate can convict.
Why? They haven't even brought him up on charges. He hasn't even had a trial from the last impeachment. They've got something to convict on the table that they have been, this is the one thing Mitch McConnell did right, stalling on. So it hasn't been decided into a position where it can't be brought up again. It hasn't even been opened. They can start now.
Didn't the Senate take its vote?
No. Mitch McConnell said no. And he never brought it to the floor.
The thing is that you have the 25th Amendment, and I think that's where you go, because you want him removed, and you want a solid government so that the 19th and 20th, some country does not, or terrorist group, attack us all of a sudden on that day when we're the weakest. And I'm afraid that's going to happen as well. So now I'm worried about them coming back and attacking again on the 20th in some way that others will have an opportunity to use bioterrorist, bioweapons and other things to attack us with, or even weapons. And I think we're going to leave ourselves vulnerable because you have a Pentagon and government that doesn't really know who's in charge. And that is going to be our weakest point, 19th and 20th. Why not take advantage of that? That's what I'm afraid of.
And America has a lot of enemies.
Yeah, I don't know how much I'm worried about that because we'll
just cough on them. It's okay. Most of the world's afraid of the strain from England, and we got it here too. We got biological terrorism. We'll bring it on.
Yeah, our military leadership can act with some authority. They can't launch nuclear weapons in theory without the presidential authority, and I'm not sure how much else the president has to sign off on. But I think that they can protect the country.
I do have concern about what Trump or Donnie or whatever, the great orange guy.
Cheeto. Senor Cheeto.
Right. I am concerned about what he has planned under his next. I don't believe that this is like we've already said, this isn't it. I do believe that the next time it will be even less veiled than it was this time. But I am waiting for another news story, not because I want one, but I'm waiting on it. I'm concerned about because I used to call him smart, and this is in recent past. Like, I believe that he has been very smart in being so polarizing. And I believe that he did a lot of the things that he did with purpose. However, I believe that he is now spiraling. And I don't believe he has a method to the madness at this point in his quote unquote presidency. So someone who is spiraling, who is unpredictable, who is losing their power, and who is desperate, you don't know what that next move is just to give a big old, fuck you before he leaves the office. So I think it's still important trying to figure out what can be done to subdue him in these final days.
Yeah,
give him an iPhone with actually no connection to the internet that pretends like it's connected to the internet and let him tweet his heart out. We know what his weakness is. He likes to tweet.
Yeah, we did a bot to do lots of likes, lots of little hearts, and a lot of negative reaction too, because if he doesn't see that happening, he won't think he's reaching.
Shadow ban him on Twitter and fake that he believes that he's still reaching an audience, and soothe his ego that way. And then he'll just tell his Twitter bot that's soothing his ego all of his evil plans and try and get it to show up. And good luck with that.
Yep.
Yeah, he'll figure it out.
So look. Well, go ahead, Daiku.
That's the thing. Hey, guys. I'm like, that's the thing. That them taking him off of Twitter permanently, that ban, we do not know how far that destabilized him. We don't know how far that destabilized him. And that's what the scary part is. You know, that was his connection to his people. They don't know how far that destabilized him. And that is what I am worried about. How far has he taken him off of Twitter? We've not seen him really too much since then.
Yeah.
You know?
So everybody in the audience, Elizabeth is back with us. Elizabeth, this was your idea, and then you bailed on me, and now you're back. So
I totally apologize. Personal emergency things that just come out of nowhere, and they're like, oh my gosh, I truly appreciate Alan being able to sit in.
He did a good job.
Yeah, I saw what happened, and also listening to the responses of people from all sides as they were comparisons between the two situations. And I know that here in Harnett County, we had quite a few people attending that event, which is scary. There were quite a few of them being participants, which is absolutely terrifying.
On the right wing side, left wing side, or both?
On the right wing side. On the right wing side. They were part of those taking congressional property out of their offices, whether it was mail or furniture or whatever. They were part of it.
Yeah, I saw on local news that there were some from North Carolina that had been identified and arrested. I should note to the audience that Elizabeth's internet has a little, like about a 2-second glitch about every 15 seconds or so. And I don't know if you're seeing it on your end or not.
I'm going to mute myself and change location.
Okay.
That might help. Give me a minute.
Okay, we'll give that a try.
And as an interlude, I would like to pop in with a sentence that I'm sure everyone has heard before, but it bears some considering in these times, and that is, the only thing evil needs to thrive is for good people to remain silent.
Mm-hmm.
Heard that before.
And it's great because my first thought about the Twitter part was like, okay, so he's just going to make another account. The reason why it's taking so much power from him, however, is anybody can make an account and say I'm Trump without a verified badge and say the ludicrous things that he says. So even if it is him, he won't have that following that he wants.
I've seen 4 people instantly make troll accounts that are pretending to be Trump. And they've come in sounding enough like Trump, probably to hoodwink some followers, but also they happen to be on, in my opinion, the moral side of things. And so they sort of slide that on in, like, hey, let's make America great again. Volunteer at your local soup kitchen. Stuff like that.
And Trump does not care about, anybody. So he doesn't care about anything but his toupee.
Yeah. He's tried to use the official POTUS account, and
they deleted those tweets.
Deleted those. The last thing that was published there was that's left on there is like early December. He's tried to use the accounts of some subordinates, and as someone described it, Twitter's like playing whack-a-mole, and whacking those down as fast as he posts something. So it's government in the 3rd grade is what's going on now.
Yeah. He has something to say, and when I was younger, you pick up stalkers, and you don't have to condone the reality to acknowledge the reality. And the one piece of advice I was given by law enforcement when, I had to get them involved with a particular stalker was, do not cut off every means of access of that stalker contacting you. Like, have an email address and keep that email. You can abandon the email address, but keep it active so the stalker can keep emailing that address. Because if you cut off every means of communication between somebody who's unstable and their intended audience, they will, as Elizabeth pointed out, destabilize, and it gets worse, not better.
Oh yeah, that is my greatest fear. They should just be, one playground avenue for him to be available on, to be able to get out that way. But cutting him off completely, I think Nancy Pelosi was correct in having fear of the nuclear codes. Like, this is a guy who will have no problem launching those things or ordering their launch without a second thought. He'd have no problem doing that. And I hope that we are able to make it these next 12 days, like 12 days of Christmas. We've got 12 days to, or whatever, 18 days, whatever, to inauguration. I don't know if it was mentioned before. Everyone keeps referring to this as some kind of, it wasn't a march, it wasn't a rally, it wasn't a riot, it was an attack.
It was a coup. It was a coup attempt.
It was. That's what it was. It's not a riot. Trying to lessen it to the level of riot. That's not what we were witnessing.
I saw the word insurrection. I mean, that's close, but it came on the day when they were ratifying the Electoral College count. That is trying to steal power. That's a coup.
So you guys have said several times you thought this was planned in advance. Do you think it was planned in advance all the way through breaking in and walking through the Capitol?
No, that's where I think they got lucky.
Right.
I think that was them, improvising and getting lucky. If they had planned it in advance, I think certain things would have gone more smoothly for them, which didn't. So that's where I think that this was just improv and luck at the moment.
And I mean, when you have unhinged people, like that you can influence. I mean, you lead them to the trough and they'll drink.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. It may have been unplanned for the people that showed up to conduct this action to go as far as they did. But the law enforcement, whether it's police or National Guard and all that, they knew what they were dealing with.
Yep.
They knew. They had a whole, prep stuff. They knew what they were dealing with. They knew what they were looking at. They have enough experts. They had spent enough money on equipment. They knew what they were dealing with. What I do not get is how they left them so ill-equipped and ill-prepared. And then after the attack on the Capitol, they let these guys walk out, get in their cars, and go home. That is what stuns me, that they let them get in their cars and go home. One of the policemen had his head smashed in with a fire extinguisher, and the killer that day got to get in their car and go home. That, for me, is what is baffling. What is baffling? Many minorities get shot for having their tail light broken, for not answering the police fast enough. They get beaten up, have their face in the pavement quick. These guys bashed in the head of a law enforcement officer with a fire extinguisher. They smash Congress. They have everyone literally in terror and in peril. And you know what? Hey, we're done. Let's go home now. Come on. I'm trying to, until now, I'm really trying to fathom the moment someone said, oh, just let them go home. Here at the Moral marches, remember the Moral Monday marches we had around at the Capitol? They would line school buses worth of prison transportation. They would line school buses worth of prison transportation. You are not going to go home if they had their say. They would hassle you, line you up, however long it took to load you into those buses. They would do it. But these guys do this act, and they get in their car, go home, have dinner with their family, yak with their friends all over social media about it. Yeah. That is completely, if we ever, for those who are in wonder of how broken the system is, for those who still,
Anderson Cooper on CNN put it that they went to dinner at Olive Garden and then went to the Hilton Garden Inn for their hotel room that night. And Sean Hannity did a 10-minute rant on Anderson Cooper praising Olive Garden and the Hilton Garden Inn. That was what was important to Sean Hannity that night, that he needed to resurrect the reputation of Olive Garden. It's not just a right-wing. I kind of like Olive Garden myself.
I mean, it has unlimited salad and breadsticks, but we have a pandemic, so probably not dining in a restaurant is the way to go.
Yeah.
And that's a right-wing thing to do, is to risk other people's lives like that. But I would like to pop in with just one tiny little fact, and that is that there is no statute of limitations on sedition and treason. So even if they weren't arrested on the day, that does not mean they cannot be.
Yeah, lots of pictures.
Yeah.
They're working on finding them.
And if I were a thinking woman, I would wait to arrest them until ye old orange Cheeto is no longer in the pardoning seat.
Yeah. Well, he can't, it would have to be after they were either charged or, I guess convicted.
You have a right to a speedy trial, and you can take a plea. Oh, conviction. Oh, pardon. Yay, all done. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would wait until after, if I were a thinking woman.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't know that they're smart enough to have figured that out, but I just thought that
may be a part of the plan.
I sure hope it is. I sure hope they have all their homes and addresses marked with an X on the map, with a inauguration day operation, kind of thing. Because I guess they were anticipating getting arrested right there. I think that was their anticipation, was to get arrested right there so they could be pardoned nice and quick. Mm-hmm. But I hope they identify them and just sit and wait as soon as that right hand is lowered after Biden's inauguration. They just go and sweep them up like the
right.
I mean, if I were in charge, that's the plan I would use. But also, I would mention it to the American public because we deserve to know, and it's not like that can change. If I were about to be sworn in and I told the American public, here's the plan and here's why we're not doing it, that's not changeable unless somebody assassinates me, in which case, I'm assuming I'm Biden in this case, in which case Kamala Harris takes over as president, and then she'll make it happen. So, I don't see any shame in telling the American public if that's the plan.
Yep.
On a random, did you guys see the woman with the onion? There was a woman who was crying about being tear gassed in her face. And it actually was on camera that she had a cloth with a half of an onion in it. She was rubbing her face. Yeah, there's actual video evidence.
We love false flags, don't we?
It was
oh
hilarious.
My gosh.
She was like, they sprayed me in the face, and all I was trying to do was break into the Capitol. Face red, crying. All kinds of white tears. And I'm sorry, guys, but that's just how I speak. But all kinds of white tears.
I'm offended.
It was the onions.
No, you've got to find the humor in the really ridiculous, or else you will go crazy just looking at all this horror. That's why gallows humor is a thing. What convinced me that they were lucky buffoons in this case was the breaking of the flagpole when they were trying to run up Trump's flag. Like, they didn't plan to break their own flagpole. Like, that's where I was like, some of this is improvised.
And who had time to build a whole thing to bring a noose out there with like a stage and everything? Like, who had time for that if this wasn't planned? Who didn't see that coming from a long ways away if they would have surveillance over this area?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think some of it was planned, but a lot of it they just couldn't believe they got as far as they did.
Yeah. Elizabeth, your camera is off. I don't know if you meant for it to be off.
I meant for it to be off for just 1 second.
Okay.
But
she's touching up her makeup.
Some of it was, yeah.
So I want to, not exactly devil's advocate, but and not exactly from the point of view of hypocrisy, but as we look at this, what happened from the perspective of what's been happening all year, and for that matter, for many decades, on protest movements that are, I'll lump them all together over on the left versus this one on the right. And we see this one and we point fingers a lot at it.
That's because this one wasn't a protest movement. This was a coup.
Right.
That's what I keep saying. Let's not minimize it by calling it a protest movement. What was it? There was nothing to protest.
Okay.
This was a coup. This was an intentional attempt to destabilize the process.
Yeah. There was the ultimate goal of this was not to just show up and raise awareness. It was to seize power.
Right.
Okay, so what I would like to do is sort of compare and contrast aspects of left and right protest movements, and there are people that one of the things I guess to compare and contrast is that there were people in this movement who wanted to take government power. Are there people on the left that are attempting to seize power by force in any way?
Okay, so you're going to have, I don't necessarily believe in, I guess, good and bad in this sense, but you have good and bad apples in every bunch. So sure, there are people, but people are people at the end of the day, no matter the race. However, I'll say if we do have those people, and seeing as we probably do, with the way that this country has stacked everything against us, some of us see it, and when I say some of us, I just say some Black people. I'm not speaking for myself. I'm not really going to throw myself into whether I believe this or not. But some of us believe that is the only way that we're going to see a true justice is not to selfishly try to take power to oppress people, but to seize some sort of power and in order to set the balance right. And if that's the way some of my people feel, I'm not going to necessarily say I condone it, but with the way we're treated in this country, like we have a right to feel like maybe that's what we have to do. So it's different than saying, oh, I've been oppressing you this whole time, and now I need to seize power to keep oppressing you, and saying I need to seize power in order to evade oppression and to get on a level playing field. So even then, those are two different fights. Two different fights with two different intentions.
I would have to say, as a outside observer of sorts, what I've seen in Black Lives Matter is that, yeah, there's the person or two who's like, make me the authoritarian, I'll handle this. Right. And then everybody turns to them and goes, then you better get elected because we're not backing your play otherwise. Right. I did not see that with the trumpets. Somebody said, I want to be the authoritarian dictator, and everybody else said, let's help you. What you need. So it's just a different response within the community. There's always people who have problematic ideas or ideas that are undemocratic. And then it's the social response of the people around them, whether they embrace them or enable them or discourage them or point them to an avenue to do it democratically that, really, I think makes the difference.
I mean, all I've really seen, and like I said, I was addressing the anomaly of whoever those people are. All I've really seen is people try to make use of collective power and harnessing their own power in order to influence the powers that be to create changes and to create new policies that will make things equitable for people of color in this country, for Black and brown people. So the Black Lives Matter movement, maybe not everyone felt that way, but from what I was organizing, what my colleagues were organizing, it was about saying we do have power ourselves. The only reason that we don't exercise it is because we don't unite. We don't realize we have it, for one, and we don't unite. So we want to mobilize our power, cause it to be a really, really force, a great force to be dealt with, and use it to kind of influence the power that is already reigning. But we don't want to seize what they have. We're using the power that we already have, and we want to set the balance straight. And in more primitive terms, we matter. It's just that simple. Why are you treating us as if we're not humans still, or if we don't matter, or if we're less, or as if we're less than? We matter. So it was just an outcrying of like frustration at the fact that that this is still going on, and even more frustration that it's become more blatant. And it really felt like we traveled back and regressed a bit. Even though in reality, this is just what it's continued to be. But it was just more of it felt like we regressed because we were seeing it come back, and it's almost like a cycle: more blatant, more covert, more overt, more
Yeah.
And that was tough. But yeah, so I didn't really see that from my side as far as a majority. There are people that feel that way, but our movement has had nothing to do with that. It was about mobilizing our power in order to influence other power.
So some of what you say, the language could be lifted out of your side of things and placed in the mouths directly of the people in the right wing who would say exactly the same thing. To take a couple steps back, what I'm seeing in very much in common on the two sides is that they're both very, very angry. Mm-hmm. And if I look at that then and say, well, then what's different is who they are and what they have to be angry about.
I think that's the key. That's the key there. What do they have to be angry about?
What in the world do they have to be angry about?
That's what I'm
sorry.
I'm like, we're getting killed, we're getting marginalized, we're getting thrown in jail for hundreds of years.
I can explain part of what they have to be angry about that I'm responsible for is, and we can curse on this show, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So racism, as a white woman, I am not opposed to dating or having sexual intercourse with white men. However, racism, that's unattractive to me, so ain't no woman fucking them. They're mad about that. And I have heard at the very core of a lot of their rhetoric, they are anytime you hear white genocide, what it means is white women won't have sex with me. And we won't have sex with them because they are racist fucks. And that is not what you want in the bedroom.
I mean, they say that racism is, quote, small dick energy. So, I mean, there can be multiple reasons for that. But yeah, it's like, what do you have to be angry about? You can say that there's anger on both sides, or you can place the words, like the same words that I've said on the other side. But if you look, everything is in context. Like, I mean, we can take words and say that they fit both sides all day, but look at the context of how you live in this country versus how people of color live in this country. Like, and we're saying the same things, but you have people that are on this pedestal of privilege and people that have consistently struggled in this country, and they're both mad about the same thing. What does it say about the spoiled brat with the silver spoon? Like, no, white supremacists are spoiled brats, and they're used to having their way. They're used to having their power, and they don't know how to live any other way. And it's not so much anger that I think is going on that side. What I believe is that it is fear. We are angry, like we're angry over here, but they're fearful. And when you have a snake doesn't have to be angry at anyone to attack them. If you back a snake far enough into a corner where it feels like it has lost its footing and position of power, it will strike. And you can say that snake was angry. No, that snake was scared. And these white people who want to hold on to their supremacy are fearful. They are petrified. They are scared.
I think they're scared. They're scared of the revenge. We're not looking for revenge. No, I think one person said it well. Said we're not really looking for revenge. We're looking for equal. Right.
They're projecting.
But they're terrified for knowing what they have done to another human being of a different race. They're terrified.
They're projecting what they would do if they were mistreated in the way that they have mistreated others. It's the same as with misogyny in those spaces. Right. Like, guys are afraid that there's a certain homophobic element within the misogynistic community. And the reason they're homophobic isn't because they don't like gay men. It's because they're afraid another man will treat them the way they've been treating women.
Yeah. So that's a great point. But yeah, like I said, I think anything that would stand in their way of living their little cushy lives, like, I mean, it is about Black people, but that's because their cushy lives are built, you know, on our backs in a lot of ways and have been. Like, that's kind of the history of America, along with the Native Americans as well. But it's anything that will stand in their way, they're going to fight it. So if things were truly equal and if there was true justice in this country, imagine how that hurts the lives of white people who are used to never being accountable, who are used to not having to have these same struggles. If we were equal, what it really means is that we would come up a bit, but they would come down a bit. And I'm just using very, very elementary terms, but I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. Like, we would have to, it would be like a meet in the middle deal, which means they would have to lose some privilege as we gain some, because we can't gain as much privilege as they, like, we're not trying to gain quote unquote privilege. But, and you know, if they lose some and we gain some, then everybody's equally privileged and unprivileged. They will be damned if that happens, because it will put them in the place where they've placed us, and they don't even want to be where they've placed us, which should say something about their treatment of Black people. Like, how do you place someone in a situation in this country and in a system that you don't even want to be placed? You don't want to be there.
I'm not sure that it is that much of a zero-sum game. I mean, I would like to think that if we stop suppressing one race or one group of people, that they can rise and we can all have a essentially privileged life. You know, one is not going to be more privileged than the other anymore.
It's a concept of if everybody's rich, then everybody's poor. You get what I'm saying? If everybody's poor, then everybody's rich. So if they get, like, if Black people, and I'm sorry I cut you up, but I just want to say, if Black people start getting more opportunities, because we have to look at actors and actresses, we have to look at doctors, we have to look at various fields that you're going to see are filled with more Anglo-Saxon counterparts than, you know, African descent counterparts. And if we start filling up some of those spots, that means some white people are going to start losing some of those spots. Yeah, if that makes sense.
I was going to say that same thing. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The cronyism is going to leave. You know, if you start actually hiring in a meritocracy, then the average white guy is going to lose out to the stellar Black guy. Mm-hmm. And the average white guy that is a bit of white privilege, is that the average white guy right now is you know, gets hired by cronyism because he's one of them boys. And that, you know, I don't mind losing that. That's fine with me. You know, I can't speak for all white people, but I'm fine with that. Let's compete fairly in a meritocracy.
Right.
If I'm not good enough to get the job, so be it. Go back to school, study harder, switch my career. I got a list of options. Crying about it, you know, for a few minutes and then get over it. We're resilient. Mm-hmm. Let's go.
We mentioned that Elizabeth had to drop out to take care of her son. So thanks, Elizabeth, for putting this together and for being here when you could.
But yeah, that's what I mean by the coming down a bit. It's not that they need to go get a little, you know, eat a little oppression and we need to eat a little, like, it's not that. It's just by natural law of things. Like, we're going to push, you know, by pushing white supremacy out, we're going to make it harder, and they're going to have to work to survive just as we will, but we will have more opportunity, and those things are going to cause each other in a cycle, and it can't be helped. So by our rise to being equal, we're making it harder for some of them to rest on their laurels or rest on their privilege.
Yeah. So then it's just I mean, what they're losing is the ability to not have to compete.
Yeah, they're losing the ability to be poor at something and still succeed.
Yes.
Yeah, and we've been seeing that going on for a long time. The complaints about
when women entered the workforce, that happened. I mean, that's that was a big spike in a whole bunch of traditional family values bits, was because women were taking away jobs from, again, meritocratically poorer job candidates who happened to have penises. And then those guys were real big mad about that. We've seen it before and we'll see it again. We have a roadmap for this. We know how it goes. And the only thing that we have to do is stop being codependent enablers about it and just go, yeah, I see you're sad. I see you're mad, but like them's the breaks, son. Rather than saying, oh no, you're crying your white tears. Please let us help you. We'll find a way. Don't be so
Those
upset.
white tears kill me. Like, I'm sorry. No, like, I'm not even trying to be unprofessional, but yes, there is nothing worse than tears of the privileged. Like, it's not about even the color. It's just even within, your like our own community. You have some people that may have lived a different type life that made their road a little easier within our community. Privileged tears just kind of take me out of here.
I will say that I'm not so heartless, because now that I work in the childbearing space, I can say that some of the people who became adults never got the education in childhood that they should have, which is to learn the resilience that they needed to learn. So yeah, I think it does need to be acknowledged that suddenly discovering you've been done wrong as a child in adulthood is a little concerning, traumatic, and you do cry, but then you got to learn it as an adult. You've got to. That's the next step. The next step is not that you get enabled because your parents were bad parents. You got to learn it sometime. Now's the time. Guess what? Buckle up.
Right. Right. Like,
we're really good at playing the victim card. Even Trump plays the victim card
all the time.
So
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, that you can't be the victim and the oppressor at the same time. I'm looking at these people saying like we have to seize power because they're trying to, take our country, or they won't let us break into the Capitol. It is, what? I'm sorry, that's all I really had was they won't let us. We were trying to go into our home, and you have to choose a side. Are you going to be a victim, or are you going to be an oppressor?
And I'd like to add one final, and I didn't hear this discussed in the compare and contrast between all the people who've ever gone into the Capitol to make any sort of statement, whether it's a coup or just awareness raising, is that right now we have a pandemic. We have a public health emergency, and that was not present in the past. And these people going into the Capitol weren't wearing masks. So before we get to the rest of it, let's just say...
Which is odd, because they should have been wearing masks to hide their identity.
Yeah, but like I said, a disregard for public health tends to be a right-wing value. Before we even need to go into the rest of what happens once they got past that front door, let's just say they were trying to get past that front door without wearing a mask to begin with. That's the point at which the comparisons stop. We don't keep comparing after that point. They are going in as biological weapons. Mm-hmm. And not just strapped around the chest as a vision piece. They are active biological weapons being deployed with every breath they take. So that's where our comparisons stop. If they'd been wearing masks, I would have had a different thing to say, but they weren't, and so I don't. They weaponized themselves. They were biological weapons, and that's not okay. That is an attack.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the other things that we can look at as a comparison between left and right movements like this is what the cameras focus on. What we saw here was a relatively small group of the total, small percentage of the total group that had assembled. We didn't see the thousands of people that were just standing outside backing up or making their point, but not, in this case, not breaking into the Capitol. In the case of, say, some of the things that happened after the George Floyd murder and the protests in the rally.
They're good people. They sure did stay silent in the face of evil. I'm just saying.
They were the same people. Okay, I'm sorry.
The people who were outside, that collective mass of them, they could have all physically restrained the guys who broke into the Capitol. Everybody just needed to put out an arm, grab them with two little fingers in a pinch grip. If all of them grabbed people with two little fingers in a pinch grip, you'd be holding those people back. So what it was that it was condoned.
And a lot of these are the same.
Their heart, but it was condoned in their actions and condoned in their words.
And a lot of these people are the same people that when riots would break out in the BLM protests or in pro-Black protests, they would condemn everyone. And without even knowing where those riots came from. I've watched videos where police officers actually started the riots. I've watched people that were really not for the movement infiltrating and starting these riots, and you see them show up, the same people, in photo or video evidence at pro-Trump rallies and various things. But because the riot broke out in one area or it went bad, they condemned everyone. Like they made it seem as if everyone was breaking windows and looting and doing all of these things, and if that's the standard, then let's hold you by the standard. That is the standard. You were a part of it. You broke into the Capitol as far as I am concerned.
So again, what I'm getting at is that what I see is something very similar on both sides. In Raleigh, we had some people, typically later at night, going downtown and breaking windows and setting a few fires. In Portland, Seattle, long occupations, some violence, some pockets of violence, some breaking windows, some setting fires. I do have to take a moment to enjoy a comment made by Sarah Huckabee Sanders on Fox News that I caught, where she described it as burning cities to the ground.
I mean,
hyperbole much, Sarah Sanders?
She likes hyperbole.
Yeah.
That should be her middle name, not Huckabee. Sarah Hyperbole Sanders.
That would work. Wouldn't even have to change her monograms.
Nope, her monogram would be just fine.
Yeah, but I do see some of that. Some of that.
But
extreme
I saw
finger
public
pointing
statements made by to point at the local Raleigh Black Lives Matter, rallies, and then their aftermath. Public statements made by influential people in the Black community and in the Black Lives Matter movement that said, we do not condone this, we condemn the activities done. I ain't seen none of that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, they've been doing that. I mean, I listened to a whole night of Fox News with them. I watch a lot of Fox News.
I've seen it from elected officials who weren't present in the crowd. I haven't seen it from anybody in the crowd. I want to see it from Raccoon Tail Hat Dude. Where's his condemnation?
Yeah, because he was in the middle of it.
But he is a recognized leader in QAnon. Where's his statement?
Well, he can't condemn the people breaking in because he was one who broke in. So.
I know. This is what I'm saying. The leaders were doing the things.
Yeah. I'm just saying the same treatment once again, like even outside of law enforcement, the same, like we can't give the benefit of the doubt to all of these people that were just outside and didn't physically break into the Capitol, but then fail to give it to Black people. And the general consensus is that all of Black, among that crowd, all those Black people and all of those, words that I'm not going to say were doing all the burning and looting and burning cities to the ground, and all of those things. So, I mean, they don't give us that benefit of the doubt. And what I'm not saying that it should be tit for tat, but I don't have the time to give you the benefit of the doubt. At this point, I'm too busy. We're too busy fighting for our lives. We don't have time to try to figure out who was a part. Like, and that's the thing that white privilege doesn't understand. Like, even though you don't do it, like this white privilege, it has time for all of that. We're too busy fighting for our lives. I'm too busy in and out of court. I don't have, I'm going to hear about the overall thing. I don't have time to sit here and try to figure out, well, who was just using their First Amendment? No, you have time for it because you're privileged. I don't.
Don't hook your First Amendment rights up to a cause that's not in it for the First Amendment rights. You want to use your First Amendment rights, that's fine, but don't show up in that crowd.
Right. Like, because, again, and I'm sure there was some people, yeah.
The leaders were the ones doing this. I have not seen a Black Lives Matter protest where the leaders were the ones engaged in property destruction.
Never.
And we don't know who was doing the destruction there.
Yes, we do. He wore his bloody hat.
No. In the Black Lives Matters and the Fergusons and the Seattles and Raleighs, we don't know who was doing it.
No, there've been very few arrests. We know who was invoking a lot of it in a lot of cases, and that stuff. I mean, we live in the age of technology, so it doesn't have to be something, right? Like I've seen a lot of how these riots start, and a lot of these riots did not start with us. And even if you, even if you took part in it afterward, when you rip a man's mask down to spray him in the face, like, and he could die from that, literally point blank, and you put, as an officer, you put his mask down to do it, yes, you're going to have a brawl. I'm sorry. Like, yes, you're going to. I don't really know what's to be expected there. These people were not provoked. No one did anything to them. The Capitol didn't do anything. Did the Capitol grow arms, or like did the
the Capitol Police sure didn't provoke them?
They had been being told. They've been being told for weeks and months that the election was stolen from them. So
yeah, but
but they were provoked from their own side.
Yeah. I question, like, we're told lots of things all the time, most especially in advertisements. They want you to buy this car. They want you to buy this car real bad. They want you to buy this car so bad. But in the end of the day, you go, yeah, but I'm in control of my decision making. And these guys were not choosing to do that, or they agreed with these messages. And I'm sorry, but you either are going to have to come in and show that you are mentally incompetent, in which case we have to make a whole bunch of decisions about the dependents in your life and whether or not that you're going to have access to your children, or you are mentally competent, in which case this was an active choice of a rational human mind.
And that's the thing that I deplore that the media is doing. They're even the left-wing media is almost saying they were told. It's not understanding that they're trying to take down Trump. Like,
I was told it too, and I didn't buy it.
I'm all for that, but we can't make them victims. Like, I've seen left and right media, but mostly left, kind of make them victims and say, well, they were told this was Trump's fault, and they really believed. And I'm just like, okay.
Then they're mentally incompetent, and they need the consequences of mental incompetence, because they are not they are non-compos mentos enough to be able to be in the positions in society that they presently are. If they truly are in that case, I pity them, and I will help them out by relieving them of burdens that they are ill-equipped to carry.
Mm-hmm. And if they don't know, like I fail to believe all of these people don't know that you need facts before you go that far into believing something. Like, they're going to need facts for other things, but they didn't need facts for this. And there are none. They didn't need evidence. Like, there is none of this voters fraud or whatever. Like, so yeah, like you want it. It's not even about believing. You wanted to push the narrative. So you were a narrative purveyor, but you did not actually believe this. I fail to believe in that in all of their heart of hearts, they believe this. Some may, but not all of them. A lot of them want to push this. I'm
thinking of the example of the woman that was shot. The one woman, the veteran, who was shot.
Oh, can
Capitol.
we talk about how? I know this is slightly derailing. Can we talk about how no shots were fired until it was at a woman? Can we talk about how the right wing, their sexism still prevails in all situations?
Yeah.
Okay, but you'll have to explain how that worked out.
So
it was
they had guns the whole time. They were being swarmed the whole last time. Mm-hmm. But who got shot? A woman. The officer didn't feel comfortable firing at anybody else but a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is an aspect that hasn't been thoroughly discussed out there in the media. Well, that's
because there's so much of a bigger, more important message. So it's gotten swept under the rug, but that doesn't mean it's not there. Yeah. It's the same way as what was happening in Georgia. There was a race between a black man and a white woman. And you know who didn't show up to vote for the white woman? Her own ass party. Because they were so sexist, they couldn't even vote for their own side, even when it was against, their own racism. Yeah, they are still misogynistic as shit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I had to look up her name, Ashley Babbitt, which I wasn't remembering, but I did read a analysis of her in Washington Post that she was, because we were talking about how much these people actually believed in their cause and how much was just fig leaf, covering their actions. It appears that she had drunk the Kool-Aid deeply. She was very much into QAnon and all of the conspiracy theories and believed them. Evidence being the the progression of posts and expressions that she put on her own social media. So, yeah, I think a lot of these people are very deep into the idea. Now, I don't think Trump believes that the election was stolen from him for a second.
No, not for a second.
And it's sad that so many Americans fall for that and have fallen for that. But it certainly appears that they have fallen very very far and very hard and very deeply for that. And I guess some of it is because they're predestined to, they wanted to, they, ready for that
confirmation
message.
bias.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's tragic. Anytime you see a loss of life, I mean, it's tragic. But I'm kind of like you, Gary. My empathy meter needs a little work there, because it didn't move me either way. I was like, oh, she was with them. So y'all just keep me in prayer so I can become a more loving person.
Yeah. The empathy part, that was part of the something I said when we were having trouble getting ourselves online, so people didn't hear that. I consider myself to be a low empathy. When tragic things are happening all around me, I'm not deeply swept up in them. I care. I'm not quite a Vulcan, but I guess that's why those characters appear, the Vulcans and the Datas, because there's a lot of us that don't connect that closely, and there's a lot of people that connect immediately and very closely, and I'm on the side that doesn't so much.
I use an analogy of a person as a bus, and there are various different aspects of a person. There's the logical, rational side. There's the emotional side. We can go on and on. What fills the bus? There's trauma. There's the trauma side. And the question is, who drives the bus? And for some people, it's the logical, rational side. For some people, it's the trauma side. And for some people, it's the emotional side. And I'm a logical, rational bus driver. Now, it doesn't mean that the other passengers on the bus don't get a say as to the destination and the stops that we make. Mm-hmm. But the person driving the bus, for me, is the logical, rational one. And I do not do well with people for whom the bus driver is the emotional one.
Oh, you wouldn't like me. I generally am. I don't know. I can't even say it drives anymore as I've been growing, but I've always been like the heart on the sleeve emotional one. And then
that can still be determining the stops. It's somebody who, who follows their emotions from place to place.
Oh no.
At the expense of their logic rather than the other way around.
Oh yeah, no, never that. No, what I mean, but with this woman, Miss Babbitt or whoever she is,
Babbitt.
I mean, I don't know if I should say rest her soul or she's burning. I don't know, but I feel more bad about the fact that I think she has kids, and whoever is in her family.
She's definitely got family.
And whoever's in that family, especially whoever's kind of awakened a bit or doesn't agree with, I guess her antics or her thought process, they have to know that not only did she pass, but this was the end of her legacy, was being a domestic terrorist and breaking into the Capitol. And that was her legacy. And her children have to hear that. And I'm pretty sure the children around them will not be kind. Or, so that's the part that would break my heart more than the death itself, is the aftermath of that and how that leaves her family.
Yeah, looking quickly through the story, they're not mentioning any family or even being married, but don't know
I
for
happen
sure.
to, by some great extension, know in a social media sense somebody who went to high school with her. And I know that high school is those who shared the high school graduating class, because it was a small high school. You don't get recruited into the Air Force from a prosperous town. You know what I'm saying? They have been, because she was an Air Force vet. They have been grappling with coming to terms with what that says about who they knew and who she's become. So it doesn't even have to be children. Everybody's domestic terrorism touches the lives of those who were there for you when you were young too. Like I heard somebody who went to the military school Trump went to. There was a documentary about Trump's rise to whatever when Trump was already crazy Twitter king. And this guy was grappling with that too. He was like, the Trump that I knew in high school wasn't this man.
I mean, I'm mad that I'm never going to watch The Apprentice again. I used to love that show. I don't know how
it's all
it
your
escaped
fault.
me. Right. I was one of those viewers. Like, I thought the show was great, and especially like Celebrity Apprentice. So, I mean, I'm grappling with who is this man that I was watching on my TV screen and completely fine with while I was enjoying his television show.
Well,
I can imagine when you know him personally.
We talked about some of that with other famous people. Like, is it okay to listen to Michael Jackson music? Can we separate the artist
Michael
from...
didn't do that. Michael was just weird. Michael liked little children. I don't believe...
I would have to say his childhood trauma was in the driver's seat of his bus.
Yeah, I don't believe... what am I doing? Okay. I don't believe that... I'm so sorry. I don't believe that he did that. But that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But maybe with the R. Kelly
Bill Cosby,
situation,
Bill
I'm not
Cosby old
listening
comedy
to him.
records, are they okay to listen to? Because I think we got him dead to rights.
It's different for every person. There is technically no right or wrong, good or bad. There's positive and negative.
Yeah, and I don't want to pick on black performers. We can do...
No, I feel that. Harvey Weinstein, or I don't know what he did.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
But no, I mean... It depends on the person. It depends on what the intention is. Everything in that sense is about intention. So if you just...
Can you imagine the people who went to school with Harvey Weinstein in elementary and middle school? Oh, they grappling with some stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, but as far as like watching or listening to their work afterward, at first I was kind of like a, mute this person or ban this person type. But I mean, everybody's different, and in the way that people are raised and their domestications and attachments, it may not actually be wrong for them. So I can't determine that. You know what your intentions are and what your reality is. I personally mute people. I'm not listening to R. Kelly anymore. I mean, and I used to love some R. Kelly. I'm not doing that. But that's my conviction, and I can't expect my conviction to be yours. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Understood. So,
and I think that's the problem with the white supremacists too, almost like, or with people in broken communication in general, is that everyone expects their convictions to be everybody else's convictions around them. So
yeah. All right. Well, we're well past our usual 6:00 stopping time, although Jen is operating on a couple of slices of pizza, so you're not about to starve.
Yeah.
What I want to ask before we go is kind of an update on what's going on in Alamance County.
I am not the person to ask. I have taken a sabbatical and a break. The only thing I know that is going on in Alamance County, I mean, I do keep up with the people that I organize with. So I mean, I know that they have a few things going on, but as far as personal firsthand, I wouldn't know. I have taken some self-care time, which is radical and revolutionary in itself. And when I come back, I'll be stronger. But yeah, I've been sitting at home drinking wine, watching documentaries, reading books, and doing puzzles. Okay. Like that's like, but I will say one important thing that is going on, and it's not just in Alamance. We've been mobilizing and organizing to keep people in their homes in this COVID season. Like, there were people that were supposed to get put out last year. And now I think it's like a different date, maybe the end of this month. But yeah, and it's been a hard time. And it's been, especially affecting a lot of Black people, but people in general, whether they're, especially people that are renting. So we've been really organizing with Bree Newsom, who has, she's forged some successful lawsuits from people who were evicted during this time, and unlawfully so or unrightfully so. So that's the biggest thing is, canceling rent and keeping people from being evicted.
All right. Were you one of the people who was arrested at the pepper spray day?
On Halloween?
Yeah, Halloween.
Yeah, definitely. We're the Graham 12.
Anything come of that, or is that pending a trial, or have you been?
I can't say much, but all of the dates continue to move forward because court keeps shutting down due to COVID.
Yeah.
So everything is taking a lot longer than it really had to. And of course, Pastor Drumright has felonies that he's been charged with at this time.
Yeah, the rest of you were misdemeanors?
Yeah.
Resisting arrest or obstruction?
No, it was what is the doggone charge? I have so many. They all blur together. Failure to disperse, and that's all I can say. I mean, that's public record, but failure to disperse. But yeah. So as like I said, I've been arrested so many times. I have to really think about it. But yeah. So I mean, that's one of the biggest things. But like I said, all of that stuff just keeps getting pushed back, and we don't know when it's going to be pushed back again. We don't even really trust the court calendar at this point. I mean, and Alamance County has even gotten me for a traffic ticket at this point. Right. They run my tags. I get followed by officers when I go through there to go to Greensboro. Like, I watch it happen. Just really quickly, I watched the officer actually get out of a lane where, like, the flow of traffic was speeding, but I watched the officer get out of a lane where someone was passing me to my left and get behind me and pull me over. So, yeah, I'm driving like a grandpa as I drive through that county to get where I have to go.
Driving like me. That's a sad commentary. I want to thank Elizabeth Crudup for recruiting Haiku X back to today's show. And I'm going to be leaving the show. I've been talking with Elizabeth. She may be taking over the show. And Jen, I don't know if you want to keep playing once Elizabeth does or not. So I'm not putting you on the hook for deciding that. Just letting you know those are the things that are going on. Haiku, I imagine she's going to have you come back on. You may become a regular. We will see. It totally up to her if she takes it over. And so you are Haiku X, and I won't even say that other name.
Thank you.
Leave you in witness protection. And Nanny Jen, who's seems to be running out of gas from the Pizza Express.
Yep. Yeah. Jen's a tired panda. Turns out that mental breakdowns take a lot out of you, and a week is not as much recovery time as you think.
Thank you guys so much for having me, though. I was excited to be here, so I appreciate you.
Pushing the right buttons here. I'm Gary Pearce. I'm still active-ish because, old white man doesn't get out there all that often. And we got a couple more shows to go for me, and then I got to tear this studio down and get ready to move to South Carolina, and we will see what happens next on the Triangle Talk Show. Over.
And
out.
He remembered, yay.